7 million years ago, something happened in the heart of Africa that should not have been possible. In a world ruled by massive predators and raw, ruthless strength, a small, fragile creature did something unthinkable. It stood up on two legs for the very first time in the history of life on Earth. Think about that for a moment. There were no sharp claws strong enough to fight off a lion, no thick fur to survive the freezing desert night, and no armor, wings, or powerful fangs. By every law of nature, this creature should have gone extinct in a matter of days. And yet, against all odds, that exact same defenseless animal survived. Millions of years later, its descendants would build massive cities that touch the sky, split the invisible atom, and leave real human footprints on the surface of the moon. So the question is not just where we came from. The real mystery, the one that should keep us all up at night, is how did the single weakest animal on the African savanna become the only species on this planet capable of asking, "Why do I exist?" Stay with me, because the answer is far stranger, far more personal, and far more human than anything you were ever taught in school. Every single person watching this video right now shares one impossible inheritance. Think about it for a second. Inside your head, you carry a brain that runs on just 20 watts of power, which is literally less energy than a soft bedroom light bulb. Yet, that tiny machine inside you can imagine galaxies billions of miles away, write music, and grieve for people it has never met. This is not just a boring history lesson about dusty old bones sitting behind glass in a museum. This is the raw, personal story of how you and I actually came to exist. Your ability to fall in love, to feel a sudden wave of fear in the dark, or to dream about tomorrow, all of it was forged in a world far more brutal and far more terrifying than any fiction could ever invent. Because before there were nations, before there was language, and long before anyone ever figured out how to strike a fire, there was just a small, terrified group of primates. They were literally running out of trees to hide in, and running out of time to survive. I know it sounds crazy, but their absolute failure to stay safe in the trees is the exact reason you and I are connected through this screen today. What those helpless creatures did next did not just save their own lives, it literally created humanity. Around 10 million years ago, East Africa was an absolute paradise. Endless, dense green forests stretched for thousands of miles. Our distant ancestors lived high up in the tree canopy, safe, well-fed, and completely hidden from the world below. For millions of years, life in the trees was a sweet deal, because up there, grounded predators simply couldn't reach you. But then, the ground beneath their feet completely betrayed them. Deep inside the earth, massive tectonic movements began tearing the continent of Africa apart, carving out what we now call the Great Rift Valley. This triggered a massive climate nightmare that unfolded over millions of years. Rainfall completely collapsed, and that once endless green paradise began to die. Trees thinned out into scattered woodlands, and eventually turned into vast, dry, open grasslands. Think about how terrifying that actually was. For a small, slow creature with no sharp claws or fangs, being forced down onto the open savanna was literally a death sentence. Every single step they took between distant trees was a high-stakes gamble with absolute monsters. Giant saber-toothed cats, prehistoric hyenas, and lions that were far larger and more brutal than anything alive today were waiting in the tall grass. It was simple. Either they adapted to this terrifying new world, or our entire lineage would disappear forever. And then, one tiny, strange, almost accidental change occurred that altered the entire future of life on Earth. standing upright. Scientists call it bipedalism, and for decades it was taught in schools as a simple survival trick, just a clever way to spot predators over the tall savanna grass. But the real truth is actually far darker and far more revolutionary. Recent fossil evidence, including the legendary Lucy skeleton found in Ethiopia, suggests our ancestors were walking upright while they were still living partly in the trees. This was happening millions of years earlier than anyone ever expected. This means our walk toward becoming human did not begin on the ground. It actually began up in the branches as a desperate, terrifying, in-between existence where they were neither fully ape nor fully human. But I want you to truly understand that standing upright on 2 feet came at a horrifying cost. To walk efficiently on the ground, evolution forced our ancestors' hips to become narrower. But narrower hips meant a narrower birth canal for mothers. And this was happening at the exact same time that our species' brain size was beginning to explode. For millions of years, our female ancestors paid for this cruel evolutionary trade-off with their very lives. Childbirth became, and honestly, it remains today, one of the most dangerous and painful events in the entire animal kingdom. What happened next, though, changed absolutely everything. Evolution's brutal solution was to force babies to be born earlier, more helpless, more fragile, and more unfinished than any other primate on Earth. It is a crazy thought. A newborn horse can stand up and walk within a single hour of birth. But a newborn human can't even lift its own head. Biologically speaking, we are all born too soon. Every single one of us enters this world completely premature, and that one terrifying, beautiful vulnerability may be the exact reason human society, family, and love as we understand them even exist at all. Because a helpless human baby cannot survive alone. It needs constant protection for years, not just weeks. This single, massive biological weakness forced our ancient ancestors to do something that almost no other species on Earth had ever done on this kind of scale. They learned to cooperate. They shared food with people who were not their direct relatives. They cared for the sick, and they formed bonds that lasted for a lifetime. But here is the part that almost nobody talks about, and I want you to pay close attention because this is fascinating and a bit unsettling. Major genetic studies published in just the last decade reveal something incredible. Modern humans, Neanderthals, and a mysterious third group of early humans known as the Denisovans. They did not simply replace one another. No, they actually interbred. They did this quietly and repeatedly across tens of thousands of years. In fact, right now, if you have European or Asian ancestry, roughly 1 to 2% of your unique genome is Neanderthal. I want you to let that sink in for a moment. Some of the precise genes that are controlling your immune system today, your skin type, and even how you respond to certain diseases, those genes came directly from a species that supposedly went extinct 40,000 years ago. You see, they did not fully disappear from the Earth. They still live on, inside each and every one of us. And here is the powerful revelation that connects everything back to what we started with. The upright walk that exposed us to terrifying predators on the savanna. It also freed our hands to carry tools and eventually to carry each other's children. The dangerous, premature birth that nearly doomed our entire species. It ultimately forced us into the deep cooperation and connection that built the first families, the first villages, and eventually the first great civilizations. Every single one of those fragile, seemingly fatal flaws in our biology, they became the exact engine of our global success. We did not survive despite our great weaknesses. We actually survived because of them. So the next time you hold a child's hand to keep them safe, or find yourself helping a total stranger, or even when you simply feel a sudden chill of fear in the darkness, I want you to remember this story. Take a deep breath and understand that you are not just a modern human being living in a modern world. You are actually the living, walking result of a desperate 6 million year-long biological emergency. And the most interesting part is that emergency never technically ended. And honestly, if stories like this absolutely fascinate you, the kind of stories that are hiding right in plain sight, inside your very own body and DNA, then I promise you, this channel was made for you. I invite you to join us on this incredible journey of understanding who we really are. We love to call ourselves the dominant species on this entire planet, don't we? But I think the real truth is actually much quieter and a lot stranger than that. You see, we are simply the lucky descendants of the ones who were brave enough and desperate enough to stand up on 2 feet and never, ever sit back down. But I have to warn you, the story of human survival is not finished. In our very next documentary, we are going to uncover the dark and terrifying moment that nobody ever talks about. It is the moment our ancient ancestors nearly went extinct completely, being reduced to as few as just a few thousand individuals. And I will show you how that near-extinction event may be written into your very own DNA right now. You are not going to want to miss that.